Hello, people of the internet. It's been a while and there is a very good reason for it. I'm in my kitchen because I'm actually cooking food while I'm talking to you.
What the fuck did you put in that sauce?
It's a long prep meal and I have to get started, otherwise it's not going to be ready by later this afternoon.
I don't know why I'm telling you all this.
Also, if you've been thinking that I'm not committed to this game, then you are sorely mistaken. It's a long story, but anyway, summed up, I went away on holiday, traveled a little bit abroad, asked the woman that I love to marry me, and eventually fell down a train as one does, and fucked up my entire leg. So I've been pretty much homebound, and this is the first time that I can actually move about, so I thought it's a good opportunity to shoot a new video. So in my time being completely immobile, depressed, stuck in my flat, I decided I'm going to work on the game, and so I did. So let's get through everything I've done. The format of this video is slightly different. I'm very excited for you to see, so let's get to it. First off, we've got asset creation. So recently I started playing around with modeling straight in Unreal Engine. It's not because I don't like Blender, I love Blender. I just really like the convenience of being able to bring in models from Quixel, Megascans, or any external assets and just modifying them directly in Unreal Engine. So why is this useful? So there's a couple of tools that you can use. The one that I really like to use is the Boolean modifier. So what you can essentially do is you can take two different meshes and you can do Boolean operations. Boolean is essentially a variable type that's got two states, either true or false. So I can take two cubes, I can move them over each other, and essentially use that difference to make indentations to that cube. That's really cool if you want to, for instance, do stuff where you need to break it down into smaller pieces. It's really helpful. The other thing that I started playing around with was displacement. So back in Unreal Engine 4, there was an extra input into the material node that allowed you to tessellate surfaces. So what that means is if you've got a bump map and you wanted to move out to match the material bump, then you could have done so, but it was kind of clunky. Now they've moved it out of the material and you can now displace using the modeling tool, which is fantastic. It's so cool because you can use your bump maps or your normal maps to create imperfections within your materials to just give it that extra bit of realism. I also did go back in Blender because my house was created there, and I've split it up into smaller pieces. It's just more manageable, more modular in the game, and it makes it easier to just arrange the pieces around. Also, if I'm at to change to the base model, I only have to update like one wall. I don't have to re-export the entire house, which is pretty neat. I also did play around with the Ivy Creator in Blender. It's pretty cool, it's a free tool, but it didn't look good in Unreal Engine, so I just reverted to my Megascan assets that I used initially. So that's basically a recap what I did around asset creation onto animations. This garlic is good. So this was fun, but also completely unnecessary. The reason it was fun is I'm not really that good of an animator. Well, I'm not an animator at all, but playing around with it was a lot of fun. So the idea really was to do subtle animations. I even thought about, bringing in a meta-human, because I've been reading up on meta-humans quite a lot, and I thought, hey, wouldn't it be cool if I had a first-person character that could then interact with the world? And you might ask,
Yannick, why do you need a character when it's a first-person game?
Very simple answer is shadows. I want my character to cast shadows as well as have some sort of identity that I feel will just create a little bit more immersion and connection to the main character. There's a lot of character building that happens throughout the game, so that's my reasoning. So what I started doing was I started messing around with various tools, one being a tool that allowed me to capture my actual full body movements. So as I move around, I could animate this character, and I went a bit overboard and I started creating animations for even opening the door. Now that was a complete stuff up because it took so much time doing the animations there, and I think it's just a completely overkill. Maybe somewhere in the future I'll get back to it. I'll see how I feel. I think it's pushing it a bit much having the character opening the doors and like opening books and stuff like that. So I used my own face to import into MetaHuman because it's all that I have, and I started animating that person. So I did basic movements that I grabbed off of Maximo so that I can at least have a walking and an idle, added like a little bit of a camera wobble so that it looks like someone is kind of like standing and it's not completely static. Careful for the fingers, careful. This thing is actually pretty cool. Like, I just dump all like my little skins and stuff in here, and then I drop it into a bin and compost it to grow all sorts of shrubbery. There's some rosemary, one of the finest things on earth. I don't know why I keep on saying this fucking nonsense. Big piece of lamb, back to the game. So having these walking animations ready, I thought that's enough for now. Let's carry on to some audio. So I've been meaning to get a voiceover actor to try and play this character because I think it could be cool and add an extra bit of intrigue in the story and get people interested in this character's development by giving him a personality and having him talk. Of course, I thought, hey, let's try this voice acting thing out. I knew it was going to be a horrible idea, but I didn't think it was going to sound like this.
My name is Jeff.
Anyway, I use that as a placeholder for now, just so that I can test out some sequences, some animations. I was thinking of doing like a little intro scene where we was driving the car. What I started doing is I recorded a couple of examples, I added them to sequences, and there we went. I didn't really like it. I don't really like the fact that it's first person. It makes the writing extremely difficult, so I think I'm going to play around with a kind of a third person aspect. I recently played this game, Disco Elysium, and it's fantastic, and it's got this kind of very eerie, deep third-person voice that kind of talks to the entire game.
In the cabin, you see a set of steering levers, a radio on a hook, a pull-out toolbox, and the soft glow of the fuel preheater gauge. As you tap on the gauge, the indicator pin. And
I really, really like it, so I think I'm going to try and do the same. Obviously, using a voice actor that can actually do this stuff, and having a voice actor means I need some money to do so. So what I started doing was I started playing around with meta sounds. Meta sounds is essentially the new sound cues. And what that means is it allows you to create dynamic sounds throughout the game. Now you can add, for instance, reverb. You can have interactions between blueprints and meta sounds. It just gives you a lot more flexibility opposed to just playing something through a WAV file. I also added interaction sounds. So for instance, if someone interacts with a door, I added that sound. And I also thought, look, I don't want to build this for every single different interactable. So I'm going to go and update my interactable script to take an audio component that can then be updated inside the editor to allow us to reuse the same blueprint. Next up, we're going to talk about scripting. So if you've been following these videos, you would probably know that I really enjoy scripting. And what do I mean with scripting? C++, of course. It is absolutely fantastic and so much fun to learn. I went through an exercise of cleaning up my code base. Got a little bit crazy after introducing too many scripts, so I decided to clean it up. I decided to rework the way that my interactables work, and I started categorizing the different types of interactables. For instance, type can be an interactable that now you can also have something that you are able to pick up and move around. For instance, a broom or a box or whatever it is. And then there's also a different type, which is a collectible, something that you can pick up and store for later use. Which also made me think that I should probably build some sort of inventory system, and I have an idea about how I'm going to do it, and I'm quite excited for that little project. How did I do this? I created a base interactable class. Now this base interactable class has a couple of methods, one being interact. And on interact, we can do various things. There is this concept called inheritance, and we're able to create subclasses of an interface, much like you create a blueprint from a C++ class. What I'm able to do is I can create a collectible, I can create a pick-upable, and have it inherit from the interactable base class and override those methods. And this is called polymorphism. Now I know it sounds extremely complicated, but I'm going to show you exactly what I mean with it. Say you want to have different types of shapes. You want a circle, cube, and you want to be able to work out what is the surface area of those various shapes. Now we all know that they have one thing in common, and that is that they are all shapes. So we can create a base class called shape, and we can have a circle, a cube that inherits from shape. Shape can have a function called calculate surface area, and then for each one of those shapes that inherits it will inherit that function and do their own little calculation. For instance, if you have a square, you will just multiply the two sides together to get the surface area, whereas triangles and circles are quite different, and I can't really remember how high school mathematics work. What I also did was I wanted to see if I can get an interactable highlight when you hover over it to indicate that there's something that you can do there. So if you move towards a light switch, have it highlight up a bit so that the player goes, I think I can probably do something with this thing. And when they press the E key or click, it will then switch the lights on. This was fun because I had to use my C++ script to interact with material instances. And how do you do this? You have to reference every material instance, create a dynamic material, and then you're able to set properties within that material instance. You can have an is glowing, and then you just enable or disable that boolean based on whether that person's cursor is overlapping with the interactable. It was a lot of fun. And I think that's where I'm going to leave it all for now. There's a lot more that I did that I'm going to go into. I'll do another recap video like this one, and then I'll start doing my devlogs as per normal once I've catched you up on what I've been doing. Apologies again for taking so long. I think there's a very exciting journey ahead. And thank you so much for your time, and as always, happy game development. Bye-bye.